Don't believe Trump when he says Doge is finding fraud. They say he doesn't have any evidence. Well, today, the president brought receipts.
$520 million for a consultant on the environment, $25 million to promote biodiversity conservation and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, $25 million to go into Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. $19 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal. $1.5 million for voter confidence. We want to give them confidence in Liberia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well. They're doing a lot better than we do in the schools, aren't they?
$500 million for an environmental consultant. I am in the wrong business. We're sending $50 million to schools in Asia while we shut down schools in America. Like W said, is our children learning? Call 911. I'd like to report a murder.
I understand that even a temporary interruption in federal employment is a great crisis and catastrophe for you and for CNN. What the American people see is a government that is finally delivering a promise of accountability under President Trump. You want to have a conversation about transparency? Let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea where the $22 billion that the Department of Health and Human Services provided to illegal aliens under Joe Biden is right now? $22 billion with a B. That's enough to provide a free house to every homeless veteran in America. Where's the $22 billion? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Joe Biden just spent it, and now it's gone.
Once your money hits Washington, it turns into a ghost. Poof, it just disappears. Doge says they found almost $5 trillion in payments that are untraceable. The budget line is blank, and they're worried about your Bitcoin. $5 trillion, untraceable. No idea where it went and how it was spent. A $5 trillion blank check. Social Security sent out $72 billion in bad checks. Guess who resigned last night? The head of Social Security. Right when Doge asked Michelle King to have a seat because she was about to get canned, she says, "You can't fire me because I quit." And the press is acting like this isn't suspicious.
You may assert there's no waste in the Pentagon. You may assert there's no waste in
Stephen,
Treasury.
I'm not
you may
asserting,
assert there's no waste in HHS.
That, Stephen, I don't think anyone...
Then why are you not celebrating these cuts? If you agree there is waste, if you agree there is abuse, if you agree there is corruption, why are you not celebrating the cuts, the reforms that are being instituted? Every day that no action is taken, the entire
Stephen,
salaries of American workers that are taxed disappear forever.
Stephen, let's calm down.
This is
We're not having a debate.
There's no reason
about whether there are
places.
You
are clearly trying to debate me, and I will be as excited as I want to be about the fact that we are saving Americans billions of dollars.
If loving Stephen Miller is a crime, lock me up. Doge says they've already saved $55 billion of your money. $55 billion. So instead of putting that money back into the Treasury, Trump should give it back to the taxpayers. We should be getting Doge dividend checks. He can even sign them if he wants to. I know he likes to sign them. If Trump was running for re-election, he'd win in a landslide. And these aren't stimmy checks, like where we printed money and mailed them out. These are savings, costs us nothing. It's a dividend payment that Americans deserve. We'll take the billions being spent on migrant DEI and sex changes for Cambodian climate psychiatrists and just give the money back to the people. How could anybody be against that? How could Democrats fight that? Giving hardworking families rebate checks from Doge savings. Mr. Wonderful says, whack harder.
I think the issue is they're not whacking enough. There's this concept in private equity when you get a bankrupt company and you go in there, you cut 20% more than your initial read. And then you find like a pool of mercury, the organization gels back together again. Always cut deeper, harder when there's fat and waste. All of these agencies are like big fat chickens dripping over barbecues of fat. This is the best barbecue I've ever seen, but I don't think it's happening fast enough. They're not cutting enough. Keep slashing, keep hacking while you have a 24-month mandate before the midterms. Cut, 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 cut. More cutting.
If you're running a business and your CFO lost $1 trillion in the first quarter, you'd fire him. If you ask the guy in accounting, what'd you write the $1 million check for? And he can't tell you, you fire him. If $1 billion went to build something and 10 years later you drive by the site and it's still a vacant lot, you fire everybody. It's common sense. But these bureaucrats and politicians have never run a business. When they need money, they tax it. And when that's not enough, they print it. And when they screw up, they don't fire people. They instead hire people. The worse they do, the more money they get. It's the opposite of how the real world works.
America's in shock that the guy whose catchphrase was "you're fired" is firing everybody in government.
They're surprised that two billionaires who build things for a living know how to run a business and are applying business principles to running the government.
This DOGE, I call it the Department of Government Inefficiencies, is causing a reign of terror, chaos across the federal government. They have access to the American people's personal information, bank accounts and things like that they're frankly not entitled to. And so I have a major concern about them going into Department of Defense and futzing around with the internal systems there and U.S. national security.
The Pentagon lost $6 billion in Ukraine. Maybe the internal systems need a little more fussing around with. What the fuss, Vindman? When people are this paranoid, it tells me they're hiding something. It's like when a cop knocks on a drug dealer's den and hears everybody inside running and barricading themselves in and flushing drugs down the toilet. DOGE has a warrant, and they're going in. Staff at the GSA are tweaking so hard, they're not taking their work phones home because they think Big Balls is snooping on their calls. One says this: there is a persistent feeling that we are being watched. The government's watching you, but they don't like it when you watch the government. Big Brother's getting Big Brothered. Congress has the power of the purse and is supposed to have oversight of the federal government. But Congress spent us into a $36 trillion snake pit and never found an ounce of fraud. So guess where Congress is now? They're on vacation. Congress said this was a constitutional crisis and then took a week off. The politicians tapped out and they sent in the drag queens.
Darlings, oh my gosh, here I am at the protest of 5051. It is so exciting to be down here with so many people fighting the good fight and doing the good things, darlings. We have to get to the streets, make our voices heard, and don't forget, darlings, while you're doing it, stay gorgeous.
Drag queens are Democrats' first line of defense. They're the first ones off the bench. Get in there, Sparkle. Up in Boston, there was a lot of singing.
Ain't no party, party, people party, people stop. Ain't no party, party, people party, people stop. Ain't no party, party, people stop, people don't stop. Ain't no party, party, people party, people don't stop.
The Boston Tea Party, it was not. But if you think all they have is drag queens and cowbells, you're wrong. They're planning a protest outside of Tesla dealerships. And if they already own a Tesla, they're slapping on anti-Elon bumper stickers. Look at this one. I bought this before we knew Elon was crazy. Elon says they're crazy.
They call it like Trump derangement syndrome. And I didn't, you don't realize how real this is until you can't reason with people. So I was at a friend's birthday party in LA, just a birthday dinner, and it was like a nice, quiet dinner, and everyone was behaving normally. And I happened to mention, this is before the election, like a month or two before, I happened to mention the president's name. And it was like they got shot with a dart in the jugular that contained like methamphetamine and rabies, okay? And they're like, wow! And I'm like, what is wrong? Guys, you can't have a normal conversation. Yeah. And it's like they become completely irrational.
And you can see more of that at 9. Elon's nerd army is just there to upgrade antiquated computers, audit the books, and save taxpayer cash. And they're calling it treason. Big Balls is a threat to bureaucracy, not democracy. D.C. voted for Kamala 90%. And inside all these agencies, Democrats overwhelm Republicans. Just at the State Department, 74% Democrat, 18% Republican. DOJ, 63% to 19. Education, 68 Dems, 26 Republicans. Democrats outnumber Republicans by double digits in every agency. And all of these bureaucracies are unionized and kick over millions in donations to Democrats every cycle. So Democrats win elections and they grow the government, and the government donates more to Democrats and gives them all of your money. The federal government is one big kickback to Democrats. That's why they're kicking and screaming when DOJ opens the door. They think it's their government. Doesn't matter if Trump's president, it's their government. Doesn't matter if it belongs to taxpayers. It doesn't. It belongs to them. And the country's had enough. Here's the CEO of Palantir. Watch.
I just view this as, well, let's watch the Democratic Party commit suicide. And like, I've been a Democrat most of my life, and what I see is most of the country doesn't really, at this point, given the fraud, waste, and abuse we know is there, 90% of the country is like, get rid of that fraud, waste, and abuse. And I just view this as yet another example of the progressive left boxing themselves into a suicide dance. There's two revolutions happening. One is transparency and one is AI. Okay, so why is it that we do not know where every penny of our money goes? Like, how do you explain that to people? The right response is, we want this to happen, we want to happen, we want to be involved in the dialogue. The real response is, it feels like the people criticizing Elon don't want it to happen. And this is going to destroy those people.
What hurts vampires? Sunlight. DOJ's sunlight. And these Democrat vampires have been sucking taxpayer blood in the dark for decades. What never lies, besides George Washington? Math. Math never lies. Math always tells the truth. DOJ's math. And no matter how much Democrats argue with it and lie about it, math doesn't care. It keeps computing. How do you solve a crime? Follow the money. That's what DOJ is doing, following the money. And it's leading to the crime scene. And Democrats, like the sickos they are, have gone back to the scene of the crime and are trying to get into the building. It's poetic that Silicon Valley pioneers have switched sides, and now they get it. These men and women are risking it all to advance American technology and are being handicapped by their own countrymen. These insecure control freaks and ideologues are so fixated on maintaining their own power. They've neglected what this country is about, the power of the people.
I think the West, as a notion and as a principle upon which it is executed again, is obviously superior. And not acknowledging that, because by not acknowledging it or denying it, you could pretend you were smarter or better than you were, has led to enormous problems in our society. And also, for the sake of humanity, we have been blessed with a resource called talent management and software production that no other country has. So what does that mean for us? What does it mean for the world? How do you manage that ethically? How do you, and how do you prevent what we had essentially? We had a pagan religion that has infiltrated our universities, and that pagan religion basically says everything that's good about America, everything that actually works, is ipso facto bad.
The most innovative minds in America are calling today's Democrat ideology a pagan religion, hell-bent on reversing the progress of Western civilization. It's one thing when I say it. I'm just a cable news host. But when the brightest minds of American capitalism are saying it, that's going to leave a mark. Trump, Musk, big balls took AI and flipped it on Democrats. And it spit out a real simple answer: fraud.